The tension in the CNN debate studio was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Under the glaring studio lights, two of America's most polarizing political figures faced off, setting the stage for what would become the most jaw-dropping political showdown of 2025. Karoline Leavitt, the 27-year-old former White House press secretary now running for Congress, sat poised in her trademark navy blazer. Blonde hair, impeccably styled, her eyes gleaming with the ambition that had made her Trump's youngest spokesperson. Opposite her, Kash Patel, the 45-year-old former FBI director nominee and son of Indian immigrants, adjusted his tie with the steady precision of a seasoned intelligence operative. What unfolded in the next 30 seconds sent shockwaves across the nation and forever altered both of their political trajectories. Mr. Patel, Leavitt began, her voice sharp with the edge that had made her a star in White House briefings. Maybe it's time you stop pretending to understand American values and go back to India where you belong. The words hung in the air like a ticking time bomb. The studio audience gasped. CNN anchor Anderson Cooper's eyes widened in disbelief. Social media would later dub it the most racist remark ever made on live TV by a major political figure. But Kash Patel's response? Nobody saw it coming. What he said next didn't just end Leavitt's political career. It laid bare a truth about America that left the nation stunned. Before we dive into this wild story, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any of the explosive political drama we cover. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. This wasn't just another debate. It was the moment when America's ugliest truths slammed into its highest ideals on live television. By the end, one career was toast, another was transformed, and the whole country was buzzing about what it really means to be American. Before we dive into this wild story, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any of the explosive political drama we cover. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. This wasn't just another debate. It was the moment when America's ugliest truths slammed into its highest ideals on live television. By the end, one career was toast, another was transformed, and the whole country was buzzing about what it really means to be American. To get why this moment was so explosive, you need to know who these two are and why this debate mattered so much for America's future. At just 27, Karoline Leavitt had already climbed political heights most people never reach. Born and raised in New Hampshire, she came from a working-class Catholic family that instilled in her the value of hard work and conservative principles. After graduating from St. Anselm College, she landed a gig on Trump's White House communications team at just 24. Leavitt quickly became one of Trump's fiercest defenders, her youth, sharp tongue, and unwavering loyalty making her a conservative media darling. When Trump needed someone to handle hostile press conferences without flinching, he picked Leavitt as the youngest White House press secretary in U.S. history. But her rise wasn't without drama. Critics called her Trump's attack dog, pointing to her history of inflammatory remarks and her readiness to say whatever it took to back her boss. Her supporters saw her as a breath of fresh air, a young woman unafraid to take on the liberal media. After leaving the White House, Leavitt set her sights on Congress, running for New Hampshire's 1st district on a platform of America First policies and traditional values. She billed herself as the future of the conservative movement, ready to carry Trump's torch into the next generation. He was proof that immigrants could become some of America's fiercest patriots, that love of country wasn't about how many generations your family had been here, but about your willingness to serve and sacrifice for American ideals. The CNN debate was supposed to focus on national security policy, an area where both had expertise. Leavitt had been Trump's mouthpiece during major international crises, while Patel had been in the room making life-or-death calls on America's safety. But as the cameras rolled and the questions started, it was clear this wasn't going to be just about policy. This was about the soul of America. CNN had hyped it as a showdown between two rising stars with clashing visions for the Republican Party's future. They expected fireworks, but nobody predicted the explosion that was coming. The stage was set. Two ambitious politicians, each with a different vision of America, facing off under the brightest lights in the country. One would walk away a winner. The other would see their career destroyed by their own words. What happened next forced America to face some hard truths about itself. The debate kicked off smoothly enough. Anderson Cooper, CNN's veteran anchor, opened with questions on border security and national defense, safe ground for both candidates. For the first 20 minutes, Leavitt and Patel traded policy points like pros. Leavitt pushed for tough immigration controls, slamming the Biden administration for weakening America's borders. "We need leaders who put America first," she said, her voice clear and confident. "Our citizens deserve a government that works for them, not for people who have no right to be here." Patel responded with his usual calm, laying out specific policies and leaning on his law enforcement experience. "I've spent my career catching the bad guys," he said coolly. "I've worked undercover to stop drug cartels and terrorists. I know the difference between real threats and political talking points." Trouble brewed when Cooper asked about the Trump administration's immigration policies. Leavitt went on the offensive, hinting that some Trump officials hadn't been tough enough on immigration enforcement. "We need people in government who truly get American values," she said, her eyes flicking toward Patel. "People whose loyalty to this country is beyond question." Patel raised an eyebrow, but kept his cool. "My record speaks for itself," he replied. "I've risked my life for this country more than once. I've put terrorists behind bars and kept Americans safe. If that's not loyalty, I don't know what is." But Leavitt wasn't letting up. She'd come with a plan and was sticking to it no matter the cost. "It's easy to claim loyalty," she fired back, "but real Americans don't need to prove their patriotism. It's in their blood." The phrase "real Americans" landed like a warning shot. Cooper shifted uncomfortably, sensing the debate was veering into dangerous territory. In the control room, CNN producers started to sweat about where this was headed. Patel's jaw tightened slightly, but his voice stayed steady. "Miss Leavitt, I hope you're not suggesting American citizenship is about ancestry rather than values and service." "I'm saying," Leavitt shot back, her tone sharpening, "that some people get America instinctively, while others have to learn it from books." The studio audience started to murmur. Things were getting personal, and everyone could feel it. On social media, people were already picking sides, with hashtags like #RealAmericans and #ImmigrantPride trending. Cooper tried to pivot back to policy, asking about specific border security measures, but Leavitt had drawn blood and wasn't backing off. She'd decided her best shot at beating Patel was to question his right to speak for America. "Mr. Patel talks a good game about American values," she pressed on, "but when push comes to shove, where do his loyalties really lie?" The studio went dead silent. This wasn't a policy debate anymore. It was a direct attack on Patel's identity and place in America. Cooper looked stunned, clearly torn over whether to step in or let it play out. Patel's supporters watching at home felt their stomachs drop. They'd heard this before, the subtle and not-so-subtle hints that Americans with immigrant roots could never be real Americans, no matter their achievements or sacrifices. But Patel stayed calm, almost eerily so. He locked eyes with Leavitt, his gaze as steady as it had been in terrorist interrogation rooms. "Ms. Leavitt," he said quietly, "I think you should be very careful about the path you're taking." Leavitt either didn't catch the warning or chose to ignore it. She was all in on her strategy. "Mr. Patel, you've served in government and I respect that," she said. "But there's a difference between serving America and truly understanding America. Some of us were born with that understanding. Others," she paused for effect, "others will always be trying to prove they belong." The insult was clear, even if carefully worded. Leavitt was implying that Patel, despite his years of service and sacrifice, could never be a real American because of his immigrant roots. Patel nodded slowly, as if he'd been waiting for this moment. "I see," he said calmly. "So, you believe American identity is about ancestry, not actions. That's an interesting stance for someone who claims to stand for constitutional values." Leavitt's voice rose. "I believe America should be led by Americans who don't need to prove their loyalty, because it's never been in question." The crowd grew restless. Some cheered Leavitt's boldness. Others squirmed at the turn the conversation had taken. Cooper was getting frantic instructions through his earpiece as CNN execs debated whether to cut to commercial or let the moment play out. Then Patel did something unexpected. Instead of getting mad or defensive, he smiled. A calm, confident smile that hinted he knew something nobody else did. "Miss Leavitt," he said, his tone shifting, "since you want to talk about who really belongs in America, let me tell you a story. It's about my family and yours. And by the time I'm done, I think everyone watching will know exactly who gets to question whose loyalty to this country." Leavitt's confidence wavered for a split second. Patel's tone suggested he wasn't about to roll over. It sounded like he'd been preparing for this his whole career. "You see," Patel continued, his voice gaining strength, "I've spent years in the intelligence community. I know how to dig up information. And before tonight's debate, I did a little research on you, Miss Leavitt. What I found was very interesting." The studio went pin-drop silent. Even the camera operators froze, sensing something big was coming. Leavitt's face paled. She clearly hadn't expected Patel to come armed with dirt. "I don't know what you think you found," she said, her voice losing its earlier swagger. Patel's smile widened. "Oh, I think you know exactly what I found. But don't worry, I'm going to share it with everyone." And that's when Kash Patel dropped a bombshell that changed everything. He leaned forward, hands folded calmly, the studio lights seeming to zero in on him as he prepared to deliver one of the most devastating political comebacks in American history. "Miss Leavitt," he began, his voice carrying the weight of someone who'd briefed presidents and hunted terrorists, "you just told me to go back to India. You suggested I'm not a real American. You questioned my loyalty to this country." He paused, letting her words sink in with the audience. "But before we talk about who belongs in America, let me share some facts with the American people. Facts they deserve to know." Leavitt shifted uncomfortably, her earlier confidence crumbling as she realized Patel wasn't just taking her hit. "You see," Patel went on, "in intelligence you verify everything. So when I heard I'd be debating Karoline Leavitt tonight, I did what any good investigator would do. I checked the facts on both our families." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folder. "This is public information, available to anyone who looks, but I bet most Americans don't know the real story of the Leavitt family history." The cameras zoomed in on the folder as Patel opened it deliberately. CNN producers were scrambling, unsure whether to step in, but the ratings were through the roof as viewers sensed history in the making. "Let's start with my family," Patel said calmly. "My parents came to America in 1970 with nothing but hope and hustle. My dad worked 3 jobs, taxi driver by day, security guard at night, janitor on weekends. My mom cleaned offices and looked after other people's kids." His voice stayed steady, but there was heart behind it. They didn't come here for handouts or special treatment. They came because they believed in the American dream, the idea that if you work hard and play by the rules, you can build a better life for your kids. He looked straight at Leavitt. "My dad never took a dime of welfare, never asked for favors, never thought America owed him anything. He just worked, saved, and sent me to school with the money he earned." The studio was dead quiet now, even Leavitt's supporters hanging on his every word. "When I was old enough to serve my country," Patel continued, "I didn't think twice. I became a prosecutor, putting criminals away. I worked undercover to bust drug dealers and terrorists. I risked my life in operations I still can't talk about because they're classified." He paused, eyes locked on Leavitt. "I've been shot at by terrorists. I've been threatened by cartels. I've spent nights in foreign countries where getting caught would have meant death, all to protect American lives." His voice grew heavier with emotion. "So, when Ms. Leavitt questions my loyalty to America, when she tells me to go back to India, she's not just insulting me. She's insulting every immigrant family that's ever sacrificed for this country. She's insulting every American whose parents came here chasing a better life." Applause rippled through parts of the audience, but Patel raised a hand. "I'm not done yet, because the real kicker isn't my family story, it's hers." Leavitt's face went ghost white. She hadn't seen this coming. Patel opened the folder and pulled out documents. "You see, Ms. Leavitt loves to talk about being a real American with deep roots in this country. Her whole political brand is built on representing authentic American values." He held up a document. But public records show the Leavitt family immigrated to America in 1892. That's right, Karoline Leavitt is a third-generation immigrant, just like millions of other Americans. The audience started to murmur. This wasn't what anyone expected. But here's where it gets juicy, Patel said, his voice now carrying the tone of a prosecutor laying out evidence. The Leavitt family came from, get this, Canada. He paused for effect. That's right, folks. The woman who told me to go back to India is the descendant of Canadian immigrants who came to America looking for better opportunities. The murmurs grew louder. Some in the audience started to chuckle at the irony. Wait, there's more, Patel said, clearly in his element. Immigration records show Karoline's great-grandfather, Thomas Leavitt, was denied entry to the U.S. twice before finally getting in on his third try. Leavitt tried to cut in. This is ridiculous. You can't compare. Patel smoothly shut her down. Oh, but I can. Because Thomas Leavitt was rejected because immigration officials worried he couldn't support himself in America. The debate also marked the beginning of the end for Leavitt's political career. She eventually withdrew from the congressional race, citing family reasons, though everyone knew her campaign was dead after the debate. The bigger takeaway was the message it sent about 21st-century American values. Patel's response reminded the nation that America's strength lies in its ability to welcome those who work hard and contribute, no matter their origins. His calm, fact-based takedown of a racist attack showed that the best way to fight division isn't with anger or defensiveness, but with truth, dignity, and a rock-solid commitment to what makes America great. As one viral tweet put it, Kash Patel just showed America how to win an argument without losing your soul. His triumph over Leavitt's attack became more than a political moment. It became a blueprint for how Americans should respond to attempts to divide them by ancestry or background. In the end, the debate proved that America's greatest strength isn't its military or economy. It's its ability to turn people from anywhere in the world into Americans who embrace its values and contribute to its success. If this story fired you up like it did millions of Americans, hit that subscribe button and share this with everyone you know. This is the kind of political courage and American spirit we need more of. Drop a comment with your thoughts on Kash Patel's epic response, and check out our other videos about the real heroes fighting for America's future. The lesson was clear. In America, your worth isn't defined by where your grandparents came from. It's about what you're willing to do for the country you call home. And sometimes, it takes an immigrant son to remind us what that really means.